This episode is made possible by New Masters Academy, the world's absolute #1 art school in the entire world. Click the link down below for a free 7-day trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy. I am deep in the annals of your mind. I am deep in the annals of your... Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Vincent, background designer for the Hollywood animation industry.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about the lie we tell to men and women.
But before we get into it, make sure to touch, jingle, flick all our bells and buttons, please and thank you. Help this channel grow. Help us make it the money.
Help us make it the money. Erect those buttons. If you're listening on Spotify, follow us on Spotify. Just click every button that says subscribe. Hey everybody, how are you doing? We are about 17% through the year. Can you believe
fantastic.
that? Amazing. We hope you're doing well. Wow. They're looking really good.
You look great.
They're looking really, really good.
Meeting or not meeting your New Year's resolutions, you look fantastic.
Hopefully,
Regardless.
simply enjoying life.
Yes.
How about that? Yes. Okay, Janet Chan, looks like you've struck a nerve, very sensitive nerve in the human psyche, in the brain, with your last video, which you titled "The Lie We Tell Women." Lots of people in the comments venting about, their relationships with the opposite sex. How do you feel about everything? We didn't know that this would be. So I remember you were pitching me this idea, and I was like,
You're like,
I remember it started off as a topic about love.
Yeah, for Valentine's Day.
And I was like, that's not good enough. Like, it needs to go
Deeper.
So
Yes, because you told me I am very unrelatable.
Yes.
In terms, if I were to talk about my personal feelings about love. And then I kind of thought about it, and then the deeper issue was just loneliness. For everyone. Loneliness for men and women. Something that on the outside it might seem like we, as a happily married couple, might not know anything about loneliness, but as a INTJ person, I was like, I know something. I know a few things about loneliness, if that's the real topic.
Being normal human beings, we have experienced loneliness once or twice or more than that in our lives.
Yes.
You would assume.
Yes. And I just thought I guess about my personal experience with loneliness as it pertains to being a woman. Even though I typically don't like to separate men, women, whatever, people, I did feel like this particular topic, I wanted to speak specifically to women, specifically women my age. But then I've been writing a lot, which is why I feel like a lot of these videos have been getting more traction, because they're not just DIY videos, they're about life and anxiety and everything. As I was writing, I was kind of venting or just purging all my thoughts about everything, but in order to make the video more concise and targeted and specific, I had to cut out a lot of things. So there were actually a lot more things I wanted to talk about in regards to relationships for both men and women, and because I did feel worried, actually, that by focusing the video on women specifically, that some people might criticize me for leaving out men, because it's popular to kind of shit on men these days, of they're part of the problem too. But that's what this podcast is for.
Yeah, I'm here. Yay.
Yeah. I also felt a little I don't really want to talk about
the opposite sex.
Yeah, because what do I know?
Yeah. And it reigns more true that you're just focusing on a female because you're a female.
Yeah.
You know, you can relate to a lot of the issues and stuff. So what's the lie being force-fed down women's throats?
That being single is somehow better than being in a relationship. I feel like this is a lie told specifically to women, but I think it's being kind of perpetrated and told to everyone right now. But I feel like it's really affecting people, both men and women, really badly, because I think everyone's really lonely, but no one can admit it.
Where do you see the sentiment? You know, where do you see it at all?
Mostly on social media, and the biggest culprit is TikTok, because that's kind of the biggest social media platform out there right now for people. And I want to break this topic down, this topic of loneliness and relationships and finding each other, into like 4 different categories: single women, single men, coupled women, coupled men, and then our perspective on the whole thing, because this is a lot of like observations. I don't think we both are going to be making a lot of value judgments. I think we're just like, we're noticing certain things, and it is what it is. Like, I don't know, you can be angry about it or whatever, or jump to certain conclusions. I don't know. But then eventually we'll share our perspective and maybe advice as a happily married couple on how we feel about the whole thing. So I guess starting with single women, I want to break single women down into 2 categories, at least the ones I'm seeing specifically on social media. There's the group of women who are overly romanticizing being single, and then there's the group of women who are career women who are kind of being broken out of the matrix and being like, I girl boss too hard, and I kind of just want to be a stay-at-home wife, girlfriend now. Like, I don't want that. Or
at the very least, it's not as satisfying as they originally thought it would. Yes, especially for the girl boss women who had the opportunity to be a legit girl boss. They're like, I imagine sugar candy and rainbows, but it's just mounds of paperwork.
Yeah, and I'm lonely. And I want someone.
Yeah. And time's running out.
Yes. So for the over-romanticizing singleness, I had to explain this to you because I think it's specifically very social media driven. I'm not sure this exists outside of the internet. But I've seen there are a lot of TikToks going around of recently single women, either divorced or breaking up with someone, sharing how great it is to be single. Except to me, it doesn't seem that simple. Maybe if you're really young or impressionable, it's simply women being like, I'm living my best life, I'm doing great. But it's a lot of the times it's just passive aggressive comments about men, criticisms about men. In the guise of being like, I'm so empowered to be single.
What kind of comments?
So it usually has things to do with being clean, being less stressed, and being more productive, and being happier. And so with the cleanliness thing, it's kind of obvious. It's like, now that I don't live with a man, I am so clean. So it's, you could have said that statement without putting down men. You know what I mean? Like, ever since I got out of my toxic relationship, I've been just really clean. I'm a clean person. You don't have to, you don't have to put all the blame on the man. Or when it comes to stress, it's like, I am like, I've never looked better. I've lost all this weight. It's amazing what leaving my relationship could do for my stress. And it always has to go back to like men suck. Which, true or not, or helpful or not, I just find it kind of off-putting that all of these videos are about that. They have this weird passive aggressiveness towards men. And then there was just such a lack of discussion of the bad side of loneliness. Like, it was all so, wow, this is great, I'm empowered, but none of the, like, it kind of sucks being lonely sometimes, or being, let's say you're older, let's say you're 30s and up, it's kind of hard to date, like, as a single woman, and not sharing the reality of being alone. The good parts and the bad parts. So I just, and I also felt like because there's so much of this type of content, it's very view driven. Like, I feel like it's not real. I feel like people
sort of like a list of things that you could say that will garner likes and subscriptions.
Yeah, exactly. And people are like, this is like really common in social media. You'll see something go viral, someone say something, maybe it's true or not, but like, you might be in that same niche, you'll take that, and some people will literally copy it word for word, exaggerate it even, maybe put a spin to it that makes it like their own, or even more clickbait worthy or like worthy, and then it perpetuates this cycle of like, well, there's only going to be hyper passive aggressive content about how great it is to be single, and there's nothing else, because, you know, to be honest, my opinion, a lot of people on social media aren't creative because there's no incentive to be. If you can just steal someone's content or yeah, and get views, why not? So I just, coming from where I'm sitting, I was like, this is very unrealistic way of describing what singleness means or is. And then there's the career woman, the I would say the complete opposite of the over romantic single people. They are single themselves, but they've chosen that life for the majority of their 20s to focus on their career. They're quitting their jobs. They're realizing, like, I don't like being such a intense girl boss kind of person, and I just want a man to take care of me. Like, is that so hard? Is that some shameful thing to want?
How does that story arc go for especially the single dudes or just dudes period who don't really relate to that type of thing? Because most men, they want to have a job so they could start a family. You know, that's sort of like the norm, I would say. But then there's the philosophy that a woman doesn't need no man, and the only way they could obtain a competitive job is if they remain competitive, and having kids and stuff sort of like get in the way. When a woman starts feeling that way, what happens for them to be like, my whole life is a lie, basically?
I think you had to have always wanted it deep down inside. A happy, healthy relationship. But outside forces, whether it's society putting certain women who are like that on a pedestal and being like, you want to be like that kind of girl boss, you want to be admired like that, or you are gonna, even the pressure of like, you are gonna be great, you are great, you show the world who you really are, how great you can be. But and also for me, it was more like, in my video I talked about like proving people wrong, because I think as millennials, we've grown up in a situation that isn't all like empowering women growing, like some of us might have, but like the other side might have also sometimes experienced some misogyny too. And it's that like duality that is really confusing, I think, for young girls growing up, that like on one hand you're really admired for being a career girl boss, independent woman, and on the other hand, you're really put down for
even attempting.
Yeah,
to be one, right?
yeah, or like you should. You're expected to grow up, have a family, marry, and like there's just so much there, you know, that could cause a young person's brain to just like latch on to whatever gives you the most validation, the most status, the most success that you don't want. Like, I mean, it could be different for everyone. It could be like trying to prove your parents something. It could be trying to prove the world something. It could be chasing validation. It could be so many things, but at the end of the day, there's some kind of like psychological thing back there that like pushes someone to like obsessively want a career, and then to be like, fuck this, I don't want this is not what I signed up for, is when the promise of a career is happiness or some semblance of fulfillment. And like no one thing I think can give you that. I think it's everything. That's life. That's we're all searching for some kind of fulfillment in life in general, but like we're expected to believe that this one thing, getting paid a lot of money, getting a good career, can give you all of that.
It used to be a very male thing.
Yes.
You know, like when you're in Wall Street, you know, you have you have everything you want, the excess, the high-rise home or whatever, but now it's being sold to the females.
Yes.
Well, wait, I want to get a little conspiratorial. Why you say society is putting this message out? Where do you think this message comes from? Who do you think benefits from telling women that they need to just work and be alone and then die?
I really think big corporations and businesses have the incentive to, like, I'm not talking about like small businesses. I'm talking about like, I think businesses co-opted feminism and trying to use it for their own advantage. If people aren't having babies, they don't have to pay maternity leave or paternity leave at this point. If they're not leaving the workforce, it's double the workforce. It's
double the profit.
Yeah, less competition means you can pay people less. I don't know if this is an actual thing.
And of course there's tons of women who like really do enjoy working hard and all that stuff, but I think there's a lot of other women who are just following a trend and just trying to say the things that are popular. And
like, I don't fault them for it because it's really enticing. Like when people sell you on how much people will love you, how much money you could make, how successful, like
how much envy you're going to induce in other people.
The lifestyle we will have, the high-rise apartment with the modernist furniture, like it's in movies, it's in TV shows, it sells you this luxurious life, but they don't show how stressful it is, how much you're sacrificing, like other parts of your life you're sacrificing to get there. It's sexy. The same way it obviously is for men, but I feel like men have a higher threshold for dealing with it. Like women, I feel like we're like, fuck that shit, I don't want to do that anymore, but men will like keep their head down and be like, no.
I really want to.
I'll grit my teeth and bear through it. So like, I think there's this trend that like millennial career women were sold this ideal that might not fit every person. So we're like, no, I don't want to do that. And people are making content about it. They're like they want to share their experience. I think it's a lot more accepted now compared to like when I made my why I quit my job video at Disney. I'm seeing a lot more support, but at the same time, I think these women still face being mocked by a lot of people women and men on both sides. Women tend to call these women, I forget specific names they would call them, but they would say that you're not being very progressive.
Right, you're going against the narrative,
the
mainstream narrative, that you need to be a girl boss.
Yeah, like, we fought so hard for our independence for you to, like, want to be a wife? Like, that's annoying for you to be publicly saying that. And then men will mock them, in my opinion, for petty reasons. It seems like revenge. It like calling them dumb, calling them you didn't know what you want this whole time, and to me, I'm like, why would you? This person is already admitting that they're wrong. Why are you piling on, other than because someone hurt you somewhere down the line? So that's the plight of the single woman online that I'm seeing. But I completely did not address the plight of the single man, which I have a lot of opinions about. I would separate these two into two categories. The single man, the male feminist versus the incel. These are just my terms for them. I'm not using any real definition of this stuff, but this is how I describe them. The male feminists are the ones that actively shit on other men to make themselves look good. And then isn't
that like pick me, like being a pick me dude?
Yes,
basically.
Yes, basically. And then there's the incel, which I define as like the ones being picked on by the male feminists, and the ones that are, honestly, at this point, I would say the average man is probably considered, the average single man is probably considered an incel. So starting with the male feminists, how would you describe the male feminists?
I describe male feminists as men who hate women secretly, or know nothing about women, but want to echo the sentiments that will get them all sorts of social praise or the poon at the end of the day. I do not believe for a second that a man needs to overcompensate about how much men are awful and how much whatever that females are. That just seems artificial to me. It seems like men especially are doing it for effect, and not a fan of these types of people. I'm a fan of, being, what's the word for it? Not altruistic. It's like when you're, I'm a fan for rights for everybody. But when you start overcompensating, that's when a red flag comes in, or overdoing it even. That's when a red flag comes in. I'm like, I don't believe what you're saying. In fact, I'm more inclined to think that you think the opposite, or you don't have no idea. You've never been with a woman or ever picked a woman's brain about anything before.
Yeah, the main point of this type of man, especially online, is to get female validation. Mm-hmm. So what I'm describing is, I've been seeing a lot of content on social media of men basically echoing the same passive-aggressive criticisms of the overly romantic single women about being single.
Men are awful.
Yeah, that men are awful. They don't understand. They're emotionally inept. They don't know anything about women, and they need to learn. They need to fight the patriarchy actively because we're part of the problem.
Why do you think they're going so hard on this?
I think because they get a lot of female validation. I would assume it's because they want a relationship. They're lonely. And
they think the easiest, fastest way is to just completely agree with somebody.
Exactly.
With whatever, and then they'll garner the attention, and then they'll finally get the girl.
Yeah.
But don't you see? that's dishonesty, don't you think? That's like textbook dishonesty.
It's dishonest, and it's kind of shallow and fake, because what I've noticed is not only do they echo the same passive-aggressive comments, they're just no longer passive-aggressive because they're a man saying it now, and they can be more direct about themselves and other men. They'll just straight up say, yeah, men are awful. we're this, we're that. Well, they'll just insult men. And they're men, not them. Because they're so emotionally enlightened. But they're not saying anything deep about why are they like that, what is it that they actually want, or what is this communication issue that's happening. They're just being insulting. And so I find that like if anything, I assume they are seeing this content from women and they're stealing it and repurposing it for men.
Right, because women are also getting likes and validation from sharing these sentiments.
Yeah, why men women?
Another man would be like, hey, if that works for the girls, it works for me too. I'll try that.
And the reaction from men and women are usually they get adoration from women. Other men typically get really mad at them because they're being insulted. And then so these men tend to be older, these male feminists. You know, they tend to be a little bit more mature to understand that if you just echo what a woman says, women will like you. Well, yes, honey, yes, you're right. Like that kind of thing.
Oh, God, I hate husbands who are like
but they don't like
have some spine. Jeez.
So imagine being a young man and seeing that kind of person get that kind of validation online. It kind of reinforces that like, oh, I should be like that if I want female attention, if I want to be a soft boy, if I want to understand women, I have to be like that. But like to be like what exactly? Oh, to be this kind of fake, shallow version of what women actually want, which is someone to understand them and listen to them, and you know. So I find that a little concerning. And then there's the incels. I would say to call them incels might be unfair. They are just lonely single men, and they're confused because they're getting all sorts of
mixed signals.
Yes.
From women and dishonest men.
Mm-hmm. And they also societally right now feel attacked constantly. Single women are attacking them, single men are attacking them, and couples, everyone's attacking them. So I feel a lot of empathy for them, even though typically this stuff all leads to misogyny. But because like, you know, when you're confused, you're getting mixed signals, you don't know right from wrong, and women say one thing but they mean another, or sometimes they say something they don't even mean it, and then men say things that sometimes are right, sometimes are wrong, and it's just all so confusing, and then it turns into anger, it turns into resentment, and then with all this ambiguousness, I think it's easy to fall into the red and black pill community where it feels very formulaic. I'm talking about like the manosphere type people who tell you like, this is what you have to do to become an alpha, and this is what women want, and
or just the black pilling of like, this is how women are, and you just have no chance unless you're like, you know, Andrew Tate or something.
Yeah. And yeah, this all leads to some semblance of misogyny. And the reason why I have a lot of empathy here is because both the man-hating women, single women, and the women-hating men, is typically single also, it all stems from some kind of self-hate.
Or have been being hurt by somebody, by the opposite sex.
Yeah.
So...
and insecurity.
Yeah, what I typically see from women is like they really harp on the fuck men thing when they've been through a ruthless breakup, when they've been cheated on or whatever. And instead of saying fuck that person's really awful, they generalize and go like, well, all men are awful because they all share these types of traits. And yes, there's a group that do, and there's certainly, I believe, a group of men that don't. I don't believe that they're all the same like that. Just like how I don't believe how women are all the same. You know?
Yeah, like I think what I've learned from reading my psychology books, I'm currently on a psychology binge right now, is that like...
What are you reading?
I'm reading Jung's personality book. So I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about different people.
She's going to turn into Jordan Peterson constantly citing Jung.
No. I believe all psychology is some kind of...
Great man once said, mental masturbation.
Yes. And can lean too hard on the pseudoscience sometimes, but it's fun. It's fun to read.
Do you ever feel like society has been lying to you for the majority of your adult life, or the majority of your life period? When I feel like everything in my life has been a lie, you know what is true? That coffee brand coffee makes you feel good. Coffee brand coffee makes you feel really good. Great start of the day. Gives you a big fat kick in the keister.
If you want 5% off your entire order, enter code honeyandabsinthe at checkout and enjoy your coffee.
Enjoy your coffee enema.
It's hard for our minds to stay on insecurity and self-hate. So, which is just usually where all our weird bullshit bad habits come from. And so we tend to project and blame other things for the reasons why. So like usually when a man is really misogynistic, it comes from some deep sense of self-hate. They might not even recognize it, but it's probably some kind of insecurity there. And then for women, it's the same way. If they really hate men for some reason, it's because someone or something came along a while ago to make them hate themselves, and they're really insecure about certain things. So then they project it and be like, well, I hate men for making me feel that way or whatever. So I feel I don't really judge these people for feeling either way. I think maybe I used to when I was younger. I used to be more of a know-it-all, but now I just feel like, oh, everyone's just struggling. Everyone's struggling so hard, and the deep issue here is everyone are so polarized in their feelings and their struggles in life that they're lonely, and if only they could just hang out together and get to know each other and understand each other, maybe it'd be fine. But for right now, the way I've laid these single people out, that's not gonna happen.
Why is it not gonna happen?
You know, I feel everyone's too online these days. I don't think people get together anymore and do anything together.
I think so too. You want to talk about the Kidology thing for a second?
Yes. So Kidology is this YouTuber. What would you call her? Like a
She's now
video essayist?
Yeah, she used to be a video essayist, but now she's like treading into Mr. Girl territory, also talking to Destiny. I wonder if that's going to turn out great. But she's more of like the social matters and how people get along with each other, I would say. But then she's been talking, just like Mr. Girl, been talking to a lot of incel men, going like, what's the deal here? And should we empathize with these people? Is there such thing as an incel woman? All that type of stuff. But she did a very, like an AMA? Not an AMA, just like the topic of incels. And then she had incels call in and share their experience. And then there was this one incel guy who says, I have an autoimmune disease. I'm balding. I don't have healthy skin. I don't have a healthy looking body, and
he does.
Oh,
now.
he does.
Now.
He does now.
Yeah.
But even though he's very short, so it's just if you think about all the things women want. Simply from a biological, like I want to pass my genes on and make children type of thing.
Yes.
This is a challenge.
Yes. Be honest.
This is a challenge.
If that boy or similar men, because he was like 18 or something like that. He was so young. He considered himself an incel, and I'm like most 18-year-olds are incels. He considered himself more a black pilled person than a red pilled person.
But like he got all of this pilling and terminology and all this stuff from online communities.
Yeah.
Where they go like, oh, you need to be a total utter Chad to get a woman, and women only prioritize this and that, and a strong man, and then if you don't have that, you're hopeless. That type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I felt really bad for this guy. And I was like thinking like this, first of all, it's not, I don't think it's as hopeless as the online community say it is, but if you're spending all of your time and effort in incel Discord chats, I don't think it's going to be possible for you at all to find a mate. And I was telling you that like it's really unsexy advice, but it really is. It seems as though you just kind of have to put yourself out there. Does that mean you go to a club and try to hook up? If that's the kind of girl you want, if that's the kind of girl you want, you go into the club. That's the kind of girl you'll find. Yeah. But what, like if you're into books, if you're into anime, if you're into hiking, like it's like this unsexy thing of you have to put yourself out in as many things that you're into in hopes to find the mate that you're that aligns with your values. And I know that's like and it's not going to be easy, and this girl might not be like Farrah Fawcett or Anya Taylor-Joy or something, but like it's especially us being artists, like beauty's only skin deep, as the saying goes. And like what stimulates me as a dude is like having somebody really stimulating to talk to, having someone to really, like good sex is great, but a good conversation is just as good, I'd say. Mm-hmm. And it's just as revelatory, it's just as interesting for you. And I just kept thinking that like, oh boy, like if I were 13 again and I was like insecure about my weight and the way I looked and all this stuff, and I had online communities to tell me all sorts of horseshit, boy, I don't think I'd be the same person I am today.
I don't like a lot of problems with that conversation. It was a great conversation. That you
eye-opening.
Yeah, you can't find usually. But it was like a young Gen Z woman talking to an even younger, even less socially experienced boy, essentially. And I just felt so like that there's so much you're missing of like understanding of like what relationships are, what women are, what people are. And I was just kind of like he I guess I don't know very well the difference between red and black pilled, but black pilled I think is like realists, people who really enjoy being told the brutal, harsh truth of reality and like just give it to me, because like,
but it might not necessarily be true. It's sort of
it might not necessarily be true, especially for everyone, but like they like having those concrete facts to base their reality on. Red pilling, I guess, would be defined more as like, well, you can do things to change your situation, right,
like trying to tell you to behave in a certain way that might not be in your nature just to get the girl. Yeah,
like work out, look better.
Which some of it is true, but the attitudes and changing your behavior and the mindset stuff, I don't agree with.
Yes. And I think as men tend to be more into the rational and the realist thing, because when I first told you about this person, I think men have a tendency to be like, you're fucked. you're bald, you're short, you're fucked. And like other men, like if he was like here, he would be like, yeah, I know. Like men have they like being told the honest truth like that, even though technically it might not be true. Just because you're short, just because you're bald.
Yeah, just because the odds are against you doesn't mean that you can't beat the odds, don't you think? If you were the type of person to lay down and die and accept it, well then you've sealed your fate. But why not? Well, if you know you're fucked, then why not try? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have nothing more to lose.
You have nothing more to lose. It's sort of liberating in that way. Not for everyone, but like I like it's not enough, at least for me, to say it's hopeless. I will try everything until I can't try anymore. That type of thing.
Yeah. So like I felt like this person truly, like if you're in a forum full of incels and you're getting advice from other incels about how women are, maybe you should just go to the source.
Yeah. Maybe
you should just talk to women.
But see, they're afraid to. They're too shy to. All that stuff.
He wouldn't say so because he said he cold opened a lot of women. But I'm just like, you need more female friends. How about that? You just need more
cold
friends.
Opened online? Like,
no, like at malls because he's 18. I was like, okay, there's a difference between like
having girls at malls are trying to shot, dude.
Yes.
Yeah. I've done that before. Like a long time ago. This just doesn't work. You have to be in a situation that calls for socialization
with girls.
Yeah.
Like,
or girls present.
Yes.
Like a book club or a drama club or theater or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, camping, whatever.
Hiking clubs, whatever. Climbing clubs.
Yeah, I was like,
I'd say avoid the gym and clubs. I mean, like clubbing clubs, unless you want to, hook up. That's different. That's cool. But like gyms also, like women are there to fucking get their bodies, man. And then they're not there to be oogled. And that's really annoying.
Even if they are there to be oogled, they don't want
to be obvious about it.
Yeah. It's a very difficult psychological dance that humans play. But yeah, I was just kind of like, you need some female friends in your life. Like, not anyone you want to sleep with, not anyone you want to date. You need like a sister or a mother or someone to like just talk to. So let's move on to coupled women and how they're perceiving this whole singleness, loneliness epidemic. And they are also lonely.
What? But they have somebody.
I think there's the happy coupled woman and the unhappy coupled woman.
Oh.
And
so in this category, you're dividing it into two groups.
Yeah. So for me, I fall into the happy coupled woman category, and I would consider this is the easiest one to explain. They're fulfilled both emotionally and physically. So they are attracted to their partner, but they also get some kind of emotional fulfillment by speaking to them, hanging out with them, being with them. It's not just like a loveless marriage or a loveless relationship. Like it's possible to have sex and to be loveless. And it's possible to have the emotional side of it, but have zero of the physical. And either way, if that scale isn't properly balanced, I feel like they can fall into the unhappy category. And in the unhappy coupled women, there's the especially online, the people who are faking the happy family, happy relationship thing for views, or to keep up with the Joneses, or for whatever, feeling
like how great my life is.
Yeah,
envy me.
Exactly. But also, I think the ones who aren't necessarily online, the reason why they're still unhappy in a relationship and scared to leave it is because they're scared to be alone. Which I can see how the empowering single women content, being like, I'm so good after leaving my relationship, can be really helpful for them to like make that decision to leave a relationship that's not doing them any good. But it's not realistic, because if I were in an unhappy relationship, worried about being alone and worried about leaving, I want to know the full story. I want to know, oh, I'm going to be so happy when I'm alone, but I will have to face certain struggles too. I don't want to be like lied to yet again. Like I leave my toxic relationship and then I am happy, yes, but I'm also unhappy, and I never really intended to be alone for this long, or that kind of thing. The happy coupled women, I think, tend to be very empathetic. So they're the ones who will make the response videos to the people talking about how, like, a lot of women also complain about how men don't typically marry people that they like. In a way, they kind of settle emotionally. Like, if they can have a physical relationship with someone, or if they're just happen to be in the right place and the right mindset to want to get married, they'll just marry whoever's in front of them, whoever they're currently dating. They're not exactly very selective about who they want to spend the rest of their life with. A lot of the happy coupled women who are fulfilled both emotionally and physically, I see that as really sad for both women and men. I feel bad that like they haven't married their best friend. I feel bad that their husbands don't like to hang out with them. So this kind of brings me to the story. We were at Sedona recently.
Sedona, Arizona,
for Valentine's Day.
I gotta say, aside, the stuffiest, most pretentious people in all of Arizona are in Sedona.
Because they're not from Arizona. They're from California or everywhere else. Literally everywhere else. Yeah, it's such a huge tourist town. I'm glad we didn't pick to live there.
Yeah, food in Prescott 1,000,000 times better than Sedona.
Yeah, and it's less touristy.
Fight me, food. Shoot.
We
were eating at a burger joint, and we were like, oh, we're gonna eat out in 3 different places. First 2 places, not good and overpriced. And we were giving this place one last chance, and the food was quite good. But you need to go to the bathroom, as you do, to clear your colon.
Oh yes, I ate too much, and I went to the bathroom, and there are these 2 ladies. I have a hard time making eye contact with anyone, especially in the bathroom. So I just needed to like go into the stall, whatever, do my business. And these women, I think they were talking about something naughty, because they're talking about like the how do I say this without getting demonetized? The thing between a man's legs. But then when I went in, they quickly changed the subject to something else. They changed it to, these 2 guys we're sitting across from, they're really hot. And then they're like so good looking, whatever. I'm like, okay, interesting conversation you guys are having. And then what was it? The one of them said, oh yeah, he's so much better looking than my husband. My husband's fat now. And I was like, I can't believe I'm listening to this conversation right now. And then the other one is trying to be a good friend and was like, no, your husband's not that fat. He's very good looking. And she's like, no, he's fat. And I was just like, so these women, I'm assuming middle-aged women, or at least like my age and up.
Kind of our age, yeah.
I think, yeah, like 30s and up, maybe. I don't remember. But they're checking out these random dudes while being married. And then shitting on their husbands for being not attractive to them anymore. And I just felt so like, to be in a marriage like that, I can't relate. And that's just sad. Just leave your husband then. I don't know, like that's awful. And I just felt, as a woman who is not very womanly, and I don't know how to converse with other women most of the time because I can't girl. I had to learn growing up that these types of women exist. This is why women don't talk to me about things, because I'd be like, I wouldn't know how to respond. I'd be like the other one. I'd be like, your husband's fine. Like, how dare you say that about your husband? I don't know. I think from on my side of things, I don't even notice half the time. I can, especially as artists, I think we can appreciate someone's attractiveness or beauty and not be sexually attracted, not want to go after them.
Mm-hmm. I think we tell each other all the time, oh, that person's really handsome, or that girl is really hot, she has nice legs or whatever. Mm-hmm. But from a very like aesthetic, analytical, anatomy, artistic perspective, and we don't really get jealous or whatever. It's just, it is kind of a unicorn to see somebody who's just like glowing with like, whoa, you have like all of the perfect proportions. It's ridiculous. Good for you.
It's different when someone's flirting with you or flirting with me, or we're flirting with like, of course that would be different. Yeah. Of course that would not be okay. But yeah, I so like from that perspective, I've seen a lot of TikTok people who are insecure, happy relationships reacting to the loveless marriages or the loveless relationships and all that stuff, and being like, that's really sad. Like, I'm happy. And just being like, well, that's that. Like, that sucks. And I think we tend to be really empathetic, but also like can't relate because I'm fine. And then for the unhappy coupled women, they're the ones that tend to be really judgmental. They're the ones that tend to like want to force other women to get married or have kids, or not get married, not have kids, or whatever it is.
It seems purely selfish.
Yeah. Like,
I don't want to be the only one who's made these choices and decisions, you know?
Yeah, you said, let's say we were to have kids one day and we see a couple or something. What would we care as a happily married couple with kids to want to lecture them about having kids or not? Like, we would just be like, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
it's your decision.
Yeah.
Like, for example, a friend from college visited us recently, and my favorite part of the conversation is when we talked about kids, because he asked us, do you think we'll ever have kids? And we're like, no. But like, at the same time, I'm not the type of person who will be like, I don't want kids, I don't want you to have kids.
Or because I hate my kids. I want you to have kids so you can hate your life too.
I'm very liberty-minded when it comes to like whatever you want, whatever enriches and fulfills your life, and whatever you imagine is good for you. Might not be good for me or whatever. But like, he was like, oh, I want kids, and I didn't judge. I was like, cool. like that's really, really cool, and that's a beautiful thing. But we just we have different priorities. That's all it is. And I'm not a fan of people like pillorying people who've made life decisions because of what they want out of life or what they regret out of life. I think that's really awful, because it's not your decision, man.
Yeah,
it's the individual's.
It's such a envious, jealous. Fix yourself and stop judging other people and pushing whatever on other people. And then there are the coupled men who also fall into happy versus unhappy. Simply, the happy men are easy to explain.
They married their best friend.
And
got
disappear.
lucky and disappear.
Like
You don't hear much from them.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they're happy. They're really, really happy.
Life, they don't care anymore. And so there's the unhappy men, coupled men, and they're so you talk about this.
Well, there's a lot of divorces in our industry, the animation industry, because of this, I think. And I just feel like a lot of relationships, because everybody, for some strange reason, in our industry wants to be perceived as the power couple or whatever. Instead of people who have found each other at college and then, like the same things, it's more of like, let's it would be easier together to rise the ranks if we're together. And once they have obtained, very similarly to the career woman, once they have obtained the thing that they want most, which is like wherever they want to be in their career, they get bored. They get really, really, I notice dudes get really bored, so it seems as though they end up cheating or whatever it is, being dishonest to their partner, and then it's a mess, and then bad things happen, and there's a lot of resentment from the woman's side, and the dude just disappears, hooks up with whatever, because now they're a successful man with money, and then they can pretty much sleep with whoever. But I think ultimately, men, I think the biggest problem here is when they just want to settle with someone, because I feel like outside of our industry, the more typical thing is like they are forced to by their parents or by society is, you need to settle down. All of my friends are getting married, so I'm going to marry this person. But I think it behooves a guy to really have an enriching life, to find that person who's ride or die for them. And I'm a big believer of having premarital sex and living with your partner, living with your girlfriend before marriage, because you just don't know. I think you don't know if you're going to drive the other person crazy. You don't know vice versa. You don't know how the politics are. What if she's really OCD? What if you're really OCD? And if you can't talk about it, if you can't meet in the middle, which I highly encourage everybody to do, if you can't, well, then maybe it wasn't meant to be. And sex is really important. Like one of the I just don't understand when Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro talk about you can't fuck anybody before you marry. You can't fuck before you're married. I just don't understand. Because what if it's bad? What if it's not good? What if it's not fulfilling? What if you can't communicate or have a hard time communicating what your kinks are, what you desire in each other in bed? I just don't know how one could do it properly. So I really think you should look at all the angles. Because like the worst thing is this. It's a mess. I see it all the time in the periphery of what you used to do, what I still do, of relationships falling apart because they didn't get together for the right reasons, because they didn't really actually like each other, because they were both career oriented and then they're not anymore because they got what they wanted. And for us, we are really into projects. We are project-based people. We're always working on something, whether it be this YouTube channel, music, art, whatever it is. And I think that's the most fulfilling thing I want to do with you. And I want to do that with you for the rest of my life. And like, I'm open to the possibility that you might change your mind about having kids. I might change my mind, but for now, the challenge of making things and creating things out of nothing, and the possibility of doing that for the rest of my life is with my best friend, like my really, really good friend, is the most enticing. And I don't really feel like I need to or want to fuck anybody else, because we satisfy each other really well in that department. And it's just like, I'm just happy, and I don't need the fancy car. I don't need the fancy affair. I don't need any of that stuff because I'm super hyper preoccupied with talking about random topics every week. And it's just like, that makes me upset. That like that person from Sedona at the burger joint was like, I don't like my husband anymore because he doesn't look like how he used to.
Yeah, it's like
oh my
Googling younger men or other
like,
men just in general.
And I'm like, that poor dude. Like, he just doesn't know that, like, I thought you said in sickness and in health and all of this stuff. And just because he's looking a little schlubby, she's like, fuck this guy. It's so like, damn. It's like, you should have thought of that before. You should have thought, like, you should, like, I will love you if you look schlubby.
Yeah.
That's part of it, you know?
That's I guess what.
And I hope you love me if I look schlubby
yeah,
too.
of course. I think that's the importance of the like getting along without sex. I think that's why they talk about how important that is. Because like you want there to be something there when you can't anymore, you know?
Yes.
Whether you're old or overweight or whatever it is, like you want to like this person enough to stay with them.
Yeah, I hope you're with like basic of basic things. Do you actually like them? Do you like them for the you have to be like, if they suddenly got brutally disfigured, will you
lost
still
their
love
leg
them?
or something?
Because I'd still enjoy talking to you and all of that if something like that were to happen, and being around you and having projects with you. I don't think the same can be said about the girl in the bathroom.
Yeah. But I also thought, like, man, who knows what their husbands are like, you know? Like, they could also be just as bad, just oogling other women, having affairs. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. It takes two to...
It takes two to tango.
Yeah. And so other than the bored coupled men, there's also the manosphere coupled men who, like, you can tell they're unhappy because they're still a part of the manosphere space. And
why aren't you engrossed in your marriage and community?
Yeah.
You have to, like, enter the manosphere community.
It's very similar to the unhappy coupled women. They're judgmental about women and men in that, like, they're really patronizing and they feel like their way is the right way. And I'm just like, where does that come from if you're happy? If you're perfectly secure in your relationship? So that's the plight. Everyone is lonely, whether you're coupled, uncoupled, you're single, you're whatever. Everyone is not admitting these very obvious things of the human condition. And so that kind of brings us to our perspective on this whole thing. Outside of, like, making friends with each other in the opposite sex and, like, not, like, making friends, treat dating like you're making friendships. Because I think to truly get past a lot of these issues, these misunderstandings, we just have to, like, be friendly towards each other and empathetic. And you can't be empathetic unless you respect the other. And I don't necessarily think wanting to sleep with the other is respect. I think we all just need to, like, chill out and be friends for a second. And I also think people need some self-love or self-understanding, whichever word you resonate more with. I think clearly a lot of this stuff stems from some deep self-hatred or insecurity or whatever, and stuff that you probably don't even know is part of your
psyche.
Yeah, who you are. A lot of this stuff is subconscious. I haven't, like, truly thought about a lot of these things until recently, because when I was younger, there was no way I would have admitted to a lot of these things. I would have stubbornly been like, no, I love my career, or and like, at the time, I would have been honest. Like, technically, yeah, I believe those things, but, like, subconsciously, I don't know, maybe there's a reason for my hyper obsession for these things that aren't exactly healthy. So I really think people need, if they can understand themselves better and be really empathetic towards themselves and kind to themselves, it'll allow them to be less judgmental and resentful towards other people. And then they can, like, I think when we found each other was when we were at a place where we were really good with ourselves before we could possibly be together in a way that was really good for each other. And I think people don't understand, like, especially the black pill community, the red pill community, who, like, want to give these very rational thinking men a formula to how to find love, how to find a woman, how to be the best you can be. They leave out the why. And the why is not to get the girl. It's not to even be the best you can be, like, in terms of peak physical fitness or whatever, wealth, status. That's not really why. It's to be mentally well too, to, like, be confident and to be at a place where you love yourself. You can, and only then can you, like, give yourself to someone else in a way that is meaningful for you and the other person. And I would also say learn how to spot corporate feminism and manosphere behavior. A good way to tell is if they're trying to force you to do things that are very not necessarily good for you, like becoming a Supergirl boss or becoming some kind of Andrew Tate kind of person. There are certain things that, yes, are kind of good, like exercise, take care of yourself, care about the way you look. But I really feel like there's some kind, like, there's incentive for everyone to whether they're, like, the manosphere people or the people trying to convince you to be a hyper independent girl boss. There's some incentive there, whether it's views, it's money, it's whatever. Like, they don't have your best interests in mind. You have to have your best interests in mind. And you can only know that, sadly, sometimes experiencing it and being like, yeah, this isn't for me. But I guess the main point, I think a lot is still lost on a lot of people who watched my video, is that it's not exactly fun to be alone by the time you get really old, for anybody. I think that's really hard for a lot of people to admit or even understand, comprehend. Because as young people, we're, like, super independent, whether we're men or women. We're healthy, we're able-bodied people, we have so much life left to live, we can do so much, we can travel, we can work, we can whatever. But there's something about, like, seeing, like, really knowing what happens to your body as you age, to being like, yeah, being alone's not great. Like, and like, I don't really like the Daily Wire or the right-leaning people who talk about, like, oh, that's why you need to have kids. I'm like, are you saying, like, you're gonna force your kids to hang out with you when you're 80? Like, they're not gonna want to hang out with you. No one wants to hang out with you when you're 80. The only one who wants to hang out with you when you're 80 is the person. Other 80-year-olds. Yeah, other 80-year-olds. And even other 80-year-olds probably don't want to hang out with you. So, like, who's the only person who will want to hang out with you at that age? Probably the person you married. Because they're stuck with you at that point. I wrote down all the things that like, I think people don't think about. Where is it? Here are some of the things that people, I think, are not considering when they're saying, it's fine that I choose to be alone. I'm fine alone. It's one thing to say that when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 even. But it's another thing when you realize all these things. You're witnessing these things. When you're old, some of you won't know where you are. Literally. You'll have, like, dementia or something. You have no idea where you are.
Some of you.
Some of you won't be able to move.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've had a stroke, or you're overweight, or your legs gave out, whatever it is. Some of you defecate uncontrollably, and you will need people to help you clean it up because you're too old to clean. Some of you struggle to breathe. So like we've seen people who need machines to sleep, or people who wheelchair around with like the breathing tubes.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just go to the grocery store because you can't drive. Simple things like that. A lot of you won't be able to see anymore. A lot of you your fingers won't work. So say goodbye to a lot of your hobbies. Gardening, drawing, guitar,
Music, yeah.
anything, cooking. Most of you will have cancer or some kind of high medical bill from heart attack, whatever. Your kids won't, and in my opinion shouldn't take care of you.
Why?
Because at 80, do you really expect your like 50, 60-year-old children to, or however old they are, to be taking care of you who are old? Like you really want to take away their life like that? For me, if I were a parent, I wouldn't want that. And my parents have specifically told me they don't want that for me. That like they don't want me to take care of them when they're older, because that's no way for a young person to spend their life. You most likely can't have pets. There are a lot of pets here who have been abandoned essentially, not because their owners love them, clearly, like the way they act in the Petcos and stuff. They're very like well-behaved pets who don't deserve to be at a Petco, but their owners are just too old and had to give them up. They couldn't take care of them anymore. Even cats, like they couldn't even scoop up the litter anymore and give them the attention they need, or the vet, like taking them to the vet, simple things like that. So like, not only do you have so you can't go outside, there's very rare opportunities for you to go outside. You can't really interact with anyone. Your health and physicalness is failing you. So then you have to think as a young person, how am I going to deal with that? Who do I want to take care of me? Who is going to take care of me, for one? Who's willing? And who do you want to take care of you?
Or at least be your companion, because assuming they can't probably do a lot of these things themselves.
Either, yeah. And then, as you know, I used to be that kind of person. I'm very not a very emotional person, let's say that. Before Vincent, I thought I was gonna die alone, and I was very comfortable in that reality. I imagined a life where I'm old with a bunch of cats. I'm still drawing and painting. Maybe I'm gardening. I'm whatever. And I was just like, as a joke, I'm gonna die alone with a bunch of cats. And I'll be perfectly happy.
If this actually came to fruition and you moved, for some strange reason, you moved here and you saw all of this, what would you think?
I'd probably be really lonely and
a little afraid.
Yeah.
What would you be afraid of?
I'd be afraid that one, I'd be financially afraid, because I'd be like, well, I'm definitely not going to have kids, and how am I going to afford that kind of care where they're going to like care for me in that way? God forbid I have a stroke, I have a heart attack, I get cancer, I get in a car accident and I lose my legs, or I can't see anymore, I get arthritis and I can't walk or do anything. I'd be like, okay, this is the life of many an old person here. Once you get to that age, you can't go outside, so you're sitting at home all the time. You can't do anything. You can't draw. You can't entertain yourself, really. I have a neighbor who, she loves reading, and the only way she can, because now she can't see anymore, she has to listen to books. She has to listen to audiobooks, but she doesn't know how to download it herself, and she can't go to the library because she can't drive, and no one's going to drive her. So she has probably someone she hires, or someone to help take her to the grocery store every once in a while, or like get her she has some kind of subscription to this like talking library is what it's called, where she gets like audiobooks on delivery essentially, and and it's like on a little cassette or something like that, and I'm like she's like, so she
80s technology.
Yeah,
it's like thick. They almost look like Nintendo cartridges. It's the same.
And she's still very sharp, so you're all there in the mind still, right. Hopefully, but like she can't do anything, and like she just strikes me as so lonely. We try to like talk to her every once in a while, but like she used to have a husband. She had many kids, some who visit, some who don't, and I just feel like, man, everyone dies alone eventually, but I do. So when I was that very independent person, who thought I was comfortable ending up alone for the rest of my life, feeling happy in my aloneness, like I don't actually need other people to be happy, I thought that was fine. But then, like, ever since being in a relationship, a good one, where this didn't happen until we got married, but like I physically felt stress and weight lifted off my shoulders after getting married, because as a single person you're carrying around so much burden, so much struggle just to live, just to exist, and you think it's normal because it's literally what you've done your entire life. And you know the reality of it is you're going to have to like be responsible for yourself and everything for the rest of your life, so might as well start now. But you don't have to. That's the thing. Like, I know that kind of person, because I know who I was back then, is never gonna believe me, mm-hmm. and is never gonna like
really think deeply
about it. But like, you don't have to carry all that burden yourself. You can rely on someone else, and it's really nice. It's really, really, really nice to not feel like you have to do everything alone. You have to struggle through life completely by yourself. Half of that burden can be shared, at least. You can share someone else's burden, and they can share yours. And like, it makes me happy when I see the couples that do everything together, because it's not like their relationship is perfect. Like, our relationship isn't perfect, but I've seen couples go through really, really rough patches in their life, in their relationship, and for them to come out on the other side and to be like 60 or 70 or whatever, and be like really patient with each other, and being like, life is hard. If you didn't already know, life is hard. But to be able to have someone there at the end where you're taking care of each other, and you don't have to be so lonely, it's kind of worth thinking about. I really don't want people to end up like a lot of people in this town, just completely, utterly alone. It's sad. It's really, really sad. What do you think?
Yeah, I think my favorite part of the pact so far is, like, I didn't really think much. I thought it was just bullshit you gotta say, but it's the in sickness and in health part. Because, like, you know, when you're young, and you probably a lot of people who get married when they're young, they don't think that far. But like, when you're living in a town like this, and it's like, we're not casting judgment on people who are growing old. It's a part of life, and it's just the fact that we're faced with it all the time. Because I'm not exaggerating, 90% of the people here are over the age of 50. It really makes you think as a young person, and they're just as surprised, you know, to see us young people around town, but it hits different when you know, you come from LA and everyone's young and everyone's hip and everyone's just trying to in my opinion get with the person who makes them look good in the social ladder, and all of that stuff, and you don't see a lot of those relationships survive. In fact, a lot of them dissolve before our very own eyes. But then to be in a place like this and to see the people who have had somebody, who have never had anybody, who have divorced and who are alone, who are still hitting on the young things, if there are young things in town, as if they have a hope or prayer. But, one can dream, I guess. It hits different. It makes you really think about, oh, okay. So the part of the deal is if you get really sick, whether it's, now or if it's 50 years from now, I'll be there. And I'm just as committed to that as I hope that you are when you say that you'll be there for me when I'm sick, it doesn't have to be like over catastrophized. It could be like, just, I'm having a hard time. I'm going through some really hard things. And, you could lean on a friend or somebody, but they're not attached to you the same way I'm attached to you. Mm-hmm. And I feel, friends are there, and I don't want to burden them with that. But then it's just like, you are it's strange. It's like, at this point, you're more than a friend. You're like a different part of me, like this whole other version of me that I can't experience, but I can see, externally by talking to you and being there with you. And being in a place like Prescott makes me really strive for, like, I want to make it to as old as time and the world will allow, and to live life as best as we can. Because if I were given a choice, I don't want to end up, I want to have, if God forbid you die first, I want to at least know that I had somebody and I have memories to clutch onto till it's my turn. I don't want to just be alone in a room waiting to die. That's not fun.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Like, that's what it is. And people really don't understand that.
And they don't have the memories, the photographs, the triggers of all the things that they used to do with their partner. They just, like, for example, the 60 to 70-year-olds, the 60-year-olds who still hit on the young things in the coffee shops. Where will they be 20 years from now? They won't really have anybody. Some of their wives, I eavesdrop a lot, unfortunately passed, or some of them have a divorce, and what will become of them then? And I just think that, it's easy to say things like, I'll die alone when you're 30, or when you're 20, but it's something different when you're there watching people and going, like, it's staring at us in the face every day like death. It's like, this will be our lives one day. You can't, like, sugarcoat it and hang out with all the young folk in Phoenix or Flagstaff or whatever. You're like, the people here are in it for the long haul, and like the train is about to reach its final destination. And it makes me really feel like, well, if we all die, like what you said in your video, like if we all die alone, and that's like a high likelihood for everybody, well then why not make the journey worth it and fulfilling? And I mean, you deserve it, don't you think? Like, no matter what you think you've done or what you think about yourself and your self-esteem, I think everyone deserves and can obtain the life that they can look back with without sadness or regret, because they've lived something good. And that's, I don't know if people think that far. It's something I think about when I'm here, and that's what I want now. It's less about really like what there is to achieve, and more about like how to suck the marrow out of life and how to really enjoy what you have. Because you again, like said really wonderfully, like your career and your career relationship, that's not going to do you much good when your body's failing.
No.
And like, so one of our personal 10-year plan things for these 10 years that we're about to live in our 30s, basically, is to get our life back, to really, because in our 20s, I'm not sure how many people could relate, but we really worked ourselves to death. We really worked ourselves to the point where like we just had a sauna today. We just went to the sauna. We were just reminiscing about like how much self-care we needed to do when you were working at Disney and we were doing conventions, and I'm still at the studio I'm working at, and like we would have to go to Thai massages,
barely enough,
we spa for spa days to recover, but then it would always feel like we're burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, faster than we were
healing it or rekindling it or whatever. Our 30s, we are really dedicated to enjoying our lives, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean for both of us. We really want to make memories, travel, accomplish things. But the challenge here isn't accomplishing the thing. It's how to accomplish things without giving our essence, our being, our lives, our life force to it, without killing ourselves.
We have a tendency to do that, of like turning things we enjoy into things we don't enjoy.
Very fast.
Yeah, very quickly.
Right, because we're really goal-oriented. We love results. But I think now is really just like... and also living here, making steps towards securing our future, whether it means like being a little more health conscious or saving money, none other than the reason for when we get older and we don't know what's going to happen. And it would be really shit to be in debt when we're like 60 or something, that type of stuff. And it's stuff that like, it seems so far away for people who are incel men or incel women or people in unhappy relationships who are just trying to chase the whatever of trying to make their lives interesting and full of spice. But like, it's something worth considering very deeply when you have the perspective of our elders looming before us every goddamn day. So for the black pill people who are like, it's this way and there's no point, that's so liberating. Like if we all die alone and things are shit at the end, that's so kind of liberate. Like just fucking seize your life, man. Like if you want something out of your life, get it, because you're not just gonna like stumble upon it. You're gonna have to like work for it. You're gonna have to do it. You have to work for these things, because the alternative is you laying down and accepting it.
Yeah, like it's very Nietzschean, I guess, when you're like watching old people be old, and you're like truly faced with the reality that nothing really matters. Nothing really matters.
And life is kind of meaningless if you weren't to give it meaning,
Yeah. So how are you going to live knowing that? And like people like to make Nietzsche seem more depressive than he actually is. He's very like, in my opinion, hopeful and optimistic about the dooms, the reality, the black-pilledness of everything. And I am too. Like I definitely saw that reality and was like, if I'm eventually just gonna waste away dying in a room alone, work doesn't necessarily matter unless it matters to you, what it is that you want to be doing, status, looks, all these things. Like I grew up in a family where I didn't witness my parents love each other until recently. And it's kind of a beautiful thing to finally, because like growing up, conflict resolution was not a thing in my household. It was just you argue and there's no making up.
And there's a new day.
Yes. But I finally got some closure in regards to that kind of thing as an adult. And it's really nice to be able to see like, oh, so people can make it through like certain rough patches. I think it's up to you whether you decide to or not, but I have seen that people who do make it through that really appreciate the company of the other person. I think the hard times make the good times even better. And I'm really happy to see like my parents aren't going to, like, I won't have to witness each of them be lonely. You know, they can have each other as, you know, their kids are grown and off doing whatever. So lots to think about. Whether you take it to heart or not is up to you.
I hope you do, because we only got one life, you know?
This week I am recommending this YouTube video that I love watching, Day in the Life of a Taiwanese Master Chef by Alvin Zhou Films. This YouTube channel literally has 2 videos and they're both great. It's like a Netflix quality food show. Kind of like, what was that? Not Cooked? I forget, but it just follows the life of restaurateurs, and I love food. If you love food, watch that YouTube channel. If you like this episode, like, subscribe, jingle all our bells and buttons, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.